There's a quiet kind of person who moves through life without making waves. They smile through disappointment. They swallow frustration before it can reach their throat. When something hurts, they simply carry it. When something feels unfair, they stay silent. Not because they don't feel the weight, but because somewhere deep inside, they learned that their discomfort is less important than keeping the peace. You might know someone like this, or perhaps you are someone like this. The one who never complains, the one everyone calls easygoing, the one people lean on because they know you won't push back. And from the outside, it looks like strength. It looks like maturity. It looks like grace under pressure. But beneath that calm exterior, something else is happening. Something quiet and corrosive that most people never see. Psychology tells us that emotional expression is not optional. It's a biological necessity. When you suppress feelings repeatedly, your nervous system doesn't register relief. It registers threat. The body interprets silence as danger because emotions exist for a reason. They signal when boundaries are crossed, when needs go unmet, when something in your environment requires attention. And when those signals are constantly ignored, the mind begins to adapt in ways that feel safe but slowly erode your sense of self. If this perspective resonates, you can support the video by liking it. Let's start with how this pattern forms. Most people who never complain didn't choose this behavior consciously. They learned it, often in childhood, in homes where emotional expression felt risky. Maybe the adults around them were overwhelmed, fragile, or unpredictable. Maybe complaints were met with anger, dismissal, or silence. Maybe they watched a parent struggle and decided their own needs were too small to matter. So they adapted. They became the easy child, the one who didn't add to the burden, the one who learned that love felt more accessible when they required less. This adaptation makes sense. A child's brain prioritizes attachment over authenticity because connection equals survival. But what protects you as a child can imprison you as an adult. The neural pathways that once kept you safe become the patterns that keep you small. You grow up, but the old program keeps running. You stop complaining because you've internalized a belief that your discomfort is negotiable, that your feelings are secondary, that speaking up means being difficult. Comment silent if this describes your experience. And here's where the hidden cost begins to accumulate. When you never complain, people stop checking in. They assume you're fine because you always say you are. They lean on you harder because you never seem to break. They make plans without asking because you never object. Slowly, invisibly, you become the person everyone takes for granted. Not out of malice, but out of pattern. You've trained the world to expect nothing from you, so it asks for nothing and gives nothing in return. Research in attachment theory shows that people who suppress emotional needs often develop what's called compulsive self-reliance. They become so practiced at managing alone that they forget how to receive support. They tell themselves they don't need help, but beneath that story is a deeper truth. They're terrified of needing anything because needing has historically led to disappointment, so they stay silent. And the silence becomes a kind of armor that also functions as a cage. Type YES. If this helped you understand something about yourself. Internally, this creates a strange dissonance. You feel everything. The frustration when plans change without warning. The resentment when your time is assumed. The exhaustion of always adjusting to everyone else's rhythm. But you don't express it. You don't even fully acknowledge it to yourself. Instead, you rationalize. You tell yourself it's not that big of a deal, that others have it worse, that complaining would be selfish, and in doing so, you gaslight yourself. You override your own emotional reality until you can barely distinguish what you feel from what you think you should feel. Neuroscience offers insight here. When emotions are chronically suppressed, the brain's prefrontal cortex works overtime to regulate what the limbic system is trying to express. This constant internal negotiation is exhausting. It depletes cognitive resources. It increases cortisol levels. Over time, it can lead to physical symptoms: headaches, digestive issues, chronic fatigue. The body keeps the score, even when the mind refuses to count. And there's another cost, one that lives in relationships. When you never complain, people don't truly know you. They know the version you've curated, the easygoing one, the flexible one. But they don't know your boundaries because you've never drawn them. They don't know your needs because you've never voiced them. Intimacy requires vulnerability, and vulnerability requires the willingness to say, "This hurts, this matters, this is too much." Without that, connection stays surface level. People love the role you play, but they never meet the person beneath it. If someone you know might benefit from this, feel free to share it. There's also an invisible toll on self-worth. When you spend years prioritizing everyone else's comfort over your own, you begin to believe that your comfort doesn't matter. Not consciously, but in the way you move through the world. You apologize for taking up space. You minimize your achievements. You feel guilty for resting. Because if your value has always been tied to how little you require, then requiring anything feels like failure. Psychologists call this self-abandonment. It's the gradual erosion of self-trust that happens when you consistently override your own needs. And the cruel irony is that the people around you often don't realize what's happening. They think you're genuinely fine. They think you prefer things this way because you've become so skilled at performing contentment that even you start to believe the performance. If this gave you clarity, comment quiet below. But the body doesn't lie forever. Eventually, something breaks. Maybe it's a small moment, one last minor inconvenience that floods you with disproportionate rage. Maybe it's a slow realization that you've been living a life designed around everyone else's preferences. Maybe it's a physical collapse, the nervous system finally demanding the rest you've denied it. However it happens, there comes a point when silence stops protecting you and starts suffocating you. And that's often when the real work begins. Not the work of becoming more assertive or learning to complain more loudly, but the deeper work of remembering that your feelings are data, not disruptions, that discomfort is information, not inconvenience, that speaking your truth isn't selfish, it's honest. This doesn't mean becoming demanding or difficult. It means learning to honor your own experience with the same compassion you've always extended to others. Because the hidden cost of never complaining isn't just what you lose in relationships or opportunities. It's what you lose of yourself. The slow forgetting of your own preferences, your own limits, your own voice. And reclaiming that isn't about making noise. It's about giving yourself permission to exist fully, even when it makes others uncomfortable, even when it disrupts the peace. Even when it means people have to adjust to you for once, instead of the other way around. The person who never complains often carries a quiet strength that deserves recognition. But strength without boundaries isn't strength, it's self-erasure. And you were never meant to disappear just to make room for everyone else. If this resonates with your experience, take a moment to like this video. And here's a question worth sitting with. What would change in your life if you allowed yourself to matter as much as everyone you've been protecting? If you found value in this exploration, consider subscribing for more reflections on the hidden patterns that shape our inner worlds.